We are 9 days into a regional conflict that began on February 28th as a targeted military operation. In just over a week, it has rapidly escalated into a war that spans multiple borders. The initial objective for the United States and Israel was straightforward: dismantle Iran's nuclear and military capabilities. In the early days of the fighting, Allied forces assassinated Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Then, Allied forces crossed a line that past conflicts in the Middle East explicitly avoided. They began dropping bombs directly on Iran's oil infrastructure, including massive targets like the Shahan oil depot. The United States and Israel have largely decoupled their own domestic fuel needs from Middle Eastern crude. Because they no longer rely heavily on this specific supply chain, they are willing to let the global oil market absorb heavy collateral damage to achieve their military goals. Inside Iran, the government is now attempting to fight a multi-front war while simultaneously managing a massive, sudden leadership transition. Mojtaba Khamenei, Ali Khamenei's son, is stepping in to take power. The deliberate targeting of refineries and depots ensures that this conflict cannot stay localized. By hitting these specific nodes, the combatants have forced the global energy market to become an active part of the battlefield. Iran's military has responded with a campaign they call Operation True Promise. Instead of keeping the fighting contained, they are aggressively expanding the map to strike U.S. military bases and allied nations across the Gulf. In Kuwait, the first wave of Iranian drones hit both the local Air Force base and the Kuwait International Airport. They are also matching oil infrastructure attacks with their own. Iranian missiles struck Saudi Arabia's Shaiba oil field. They are even targeting basic human survival resources. An Iranian drone damaged a critical desalination plant in Bahrain. Desalination plants are industrial facilities that remove salt from seawater to produce fresh drinking water, and they are the primary source of hydration for nations in the Gulf. In the United Arab Emirates, strikes have hit U.S. consulates and surrounding buildings. This direct violence in luxury areas like Palm Jumeirah immediately destabilizes the region's high-value real estate market. The most severe economic strike hit Qatar's Ras Laffan facility. This single attack halted the world's largest production site for LNG, or liquid natural gas. LNG is natural gas that has been cooled to a liquid state for easier and safer transport on cargo ships. The conflict is also pushing north. Israel has expanded its bombing campaign into Beirut. Hezbollah forces have officially entered the fight, and Israeli troops in southern Lebanon are already taking casualties. Iran's retaliation strategy is highly calculated. By attacking refineries and transit hubs across multiple borders, they are proving that if their own energy infrastructure burns, the economic security of the entire Gulf burns with it. This map shows the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman. Normally, 20 million barrels of oil flow through this corridor every single day, accounting for roughly 20% of the world's oil and gas supply. Iran's military has now effectively shut it down, threatening to target any ship that attempts the crossing. Because of that threat, ship owners are refusing to make the transit. Insurance costs have spiked to unsustainable levels, leaving more than 150 massive cargo ships stranded right here at the mouth of the Gulf. Because those tankers cannot leave to deliver their cargo, storage facilities across the Gulf are rapidly filling up. With literally nowhere to put the oil, nations like Kuwait and Iraq have been forced to slash their own daily production by up to 70%. The physical closure of this single geographic choke point forces a mandatory quarantine on the global energy supply. This chart shows exactly how fast the markets panicked. At first, oil hovered between $70 and $80 a barrel. Then, as the reality of the blockade set in, it climbed to $93, before finally blowing past $110 per barrel. That is the largest single-week spike since the COVID-19 pandemic. For countries that rely heavily on imports, the math is terrifying. India imports 90% of its crude oil. With the Strait of Hormuz closed, current estimates suggest the entire country has about 25 days of fuel reserves left. To buy them some time, the United States has temporarily waived tariffs, allowing India to purchase 145 million barrels of Russian oil that is currently stranded at sea. However, given desperate global demand, Russia is highly unlikely to sell that crude at a discount. South Korea is facing a parallel crisis with natural gas. Because of the targeted strikes on Qatari production facilities, South Korea's industrial sector is projected to run completely out of liquid natural gas in exactly 9 days. The primary metric of success in this conflict has shifted. Now, the most vital data points are these ticking clocks, the dwindling window of time before major global economies run completely out of fuel. For the United States, the political calculus looks different. Former President Donald Trump argues that absorbing a severe hit to the global economy is a price worth paying, provided it eliminates Iran's nuclear capabilities. Beyond destroying nuclear sites, the United States and Israel see a secondary opportunity, utilizing the current chaos to install a pro-Western government in Tehran. But the reality on the ground makes that highly improbable. The Iranian opposition is deeply fractured. It is split between royalists who want to restore the monarchy, leftist activists, and federalists. They lack the unified leadership required for a clean political transition. The Pentagon warns that this conflict could easily stretch on for 4 to 6 weeks, and the U.S. military is positioned to respond without hesitation to any attacks on Americans globally. Even if a ceasefire is signed tomorrow, the unwritten rule protecting energy infrastructure in the Middle East has been broken. That ensures global energy markets remain unsafe and volatile long after the bombs stop falling.